Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior and welcome to another Mortal Kombat 11 video. Now yesterday of course we had the big reveal of the Kombat Pack, and one of the great things about this Kombat Pack is that we got our first ever look at what Spawn will look like in game. So understandably many of us are excited for his inclusion in Mortal Kombat 11. However, in also saying that though, quite a few of us are rather miffed with the fact that he doesn't come out till March. So it will nearly be a year since the game's initial release before he is in fact playable. Now considering how early on Spawn was revealed for the Kombat Pack, many of us are asking why has he been pushed off so incredibly far as DLC, and I believe that there is in fact a very good and viable reason for this existing. So in order to talk about that, we will need to talk about Spawn as a character, his movie, and what exactly is going on with him, as I think that's a massive reason as to why the Kombat Pack was delayed, as well as the fact that Spawn is the last DLC character. Now without any further ado, let's talk about why Spawn is the last character in the Kombat Pack. Now for those of you who are a little bit unfamiliar with who Spawn is as a character, he was a comic book character created by Todd McFarlane, and Spawn just so happened to have been created in the 90s where the industry was at an all-time low. Sales were poor and people just didn't have any form of interest in comic book culture. However, when Todd broke away from Marvel and created Image Comics and Spawn, it in a way reignited a smoldering fire and turned it into a giant inferno, and people were immediately attracted to Spawn. So upon release for a very long substantial amount of time, Spawn was somewhat seen as a savior, especially for the accolades he was able to pull off in the 90s. So by all intents and purposes, the creation of Spawn really did help the comic book industry. However, this would not go on for a very long amount of time, as during the late 90s, a lot of spark had been put back into the comic book industry. Now to capitalize on its success, many of these comic book industries, Marvel and DC alike alongside Image, were offered the opportunity to create movies. So deals would be made and films were finally put in production, and this really is where Spawn goes into disarray. You see, although the 90s had great iconic comic book characters, the movies they made on the other hand were pretty bad. The films around that time varied from being either very good or probably some of the worst things you've ever seen in your life, and unfortunately for Spawn, it ended up with extremely poor reception. It didn't help that around this time as well, the quality of comic book movies were dipping, as we did have Batman and Robin, just to give you an idea of the fall from grace that they all did have. So it wasn't just Image Comics alone that did take a hit here, since we didn't have a proper or good Batman movie up until Christopher Nolan stepped in. As for Spawn, however, Spawn suffered a pretty tragic fate. After the critically panned Spawn movie, its comic book sales did plummet from the margin they did have in the 90s, and slowly over the course of time, Spawn has somewhat slipped into obscurity, living in a weird limbo between two massive comic book titans, that of course being Marvel and DC. Now despite Spawn being in a pretty bad place, Todd McFarlane was clearly not discouraged and wanted to pursue actually making a sequel to the original Spawn film, but unfortunately that project got caught in development hell and never actually did see the light of day. So from that point onwards, Todd McFarlane continued to write comics. However, the idea of a Spawn movie never really escaped his mind. So around 2001 is when Todd finally sat down and started putting together a script, wanting it to predominantly focus on Sam and Twitch, an idea that he continues to use throughout every draft of the film. You see, McFarlane never actually gave up on putting together a Spawn film, and there's reports that in 2007 that he was still working on a script, all the way up to 2009 where we learned from McFarlane that he didn't want this to be your traditional run-of-the-mill superhero movie. He wanted it to have a hard R rating, as well as it diving into more of the horror-esque side of superhero movies, so there was a different form of flavour to what you traditionally see from one of these movies. Now from 2009 onwards, Spawn and McFarlane had a lot of trouble when it came to actually getting this film off the ground. He was going from studio to studio, and it seemed like no one really wanted to fund the project. However, around this time frame, Marvel had the successful release of Iron Man, and of course, as we all do know, since then a cinematic universe has been spawned, and now we are in the somewhat golden age age of superhero movies. And with Marvel making it rather clear that they aren't scared to use their characters in R-rated movies, such as Logan and Deadpool, Todd McFarlane saw this as the perfect opportunity for Spawn to step back into the limelight. Because although there is your typical superhero movie where you have your antagonist and protagonist and he must overcome said odds, there's now somewhat different subgenres under the superhero banner. You could take more of a horror-esque approach or more comedic approach. Basically, my point being is that the horror-esque area of the superhero genre is yet to in fact be filled. So Todd believes that this is a spot that Spawn could actually fill. And thus since then, he has aggressively been pushing this film, and it actually has caught the attention of many, with Jamie Foxx actually wanting to be a part of it. Now by February 2016, McFarlane finally had his script sorted out, and as of July 2017, McFarlane had finally found a studio that would produce his film, and it's none other than Blumhouse Productions, a studio that is notoriously known for putting out multiple horror films in one year. Now after signing up with Blumhouse Productions, a cast was finally assembled, with Jamie Foxx being cast as Al Simmons, but as I said earlier, the film would focus on Sam and Twitch, a pair of detectives within the Spawn universe, with fun fact Jeremy Renner as Twitch. Now all seemed well and it looked like things were finally going into production, and this is where I feel like everything I've mentioned here ties into the Kombat Pack. You see, despite having Blumhouse behind him, they were not going to give him the funding he needed to make the film, as he was asking for quite a lot of money. But there's a reason behind why they said no to McFarlane. You see, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Blumhouse Productions, it is a studio that is notoriously known for putting out extremely low budget movies and making a lot of money back. So if a film does bomb, then it's no actual scratch to Blumhouse Productions, as they will continue to put out about 4 different movies a year, so they can easily make their money back. Now due to this, quite a few things have happened. The Spawn movie that was scheduled to come out this year has been delayed, and filming has been pushed back to next year. On top of this, Todd McFarlane has been forced to cut down the script and presumably the contents of his story, and to finally cap it off, Todd has even resorted to the idea of possibly having it be crowdfunded, at least for the remaining bits of the film, as a majority of it will seemingly be funded by Blumhouse. So right now, because of that, the Spawn movie has yet again been delayed. But I personally believe that this is a key reason as to why Spawn has been delayed in the Kombat Pack. You see, cross promotion has always been an extremely big thing in Warner Brothers game, and of course for Mortal Kombat X they included Predator, Alien, Jason and Leatherface, because they all did have their own respective films coming out at the time. And in saying that, a very similar idea was incorporated for Injustice 2, as it did include Hellboy, who did get his film earlier on this year. So I believe a reason as to why the Kombat Pack wasn't revealed on release and was delayed for so long is because the inclusion of Spawn may possibly have been an issue for the Kombat Pack trailer, which may actually be why Spawn was shown off so incredibly early in comparison to his very late release, because they want the cross promotion to go hand in hand with the film, which as I mentioned has been delayed. So because of the issues that are currently plaguing the Spawn film, I think this is the main reason as to why he's kind of been pushed off, because they want that cross brand deal. They want the products to help each other out in one way, shape and form. But it's the same reason why Terminator is coming out next month, when Terminator Dark Fate is coming out a month after, and basically the sole reason as to why the Joker is even involved in the Kombat Pack. He's solely there for a form of cross promotion, because the DC movies haven't exactly been doing great over the years, so understandably they really want this to make things work out. Now to some this might seem like a rather shallow idea, but I know this might seem left field here, but if you have companies like Sony and Marvel who are perfectly fine with disregarding the existence of a character like Spider-Man in their cinematic universe, then it's very clear that from their example that they only see these characters as products, and products need to produce money in order for them to carry on. So I believe that this is the main reason as to why Spawn is being incorporated so late into the Kombat Pack, and it may also hint as to why the Kombat Pack was released so late, but everything I've stated here is a somewhat idea in itself, but it's one that's logical and does clearly make sense. But yes guys, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and have learned more by doing so. It's been quite fun to go over the history of Spawn over the last few weeks, but considering the shock we had yesterday of the late release of Spawn, I figured I'd try my absolute best to try and make sense out of this rather strange situation, especially with what's going on with the Spawn movie and how that's seemingly affecting what's going on here. Now down in the comments below, what do you think is going on here? Is this all just a coincidence, or do you believe that this has all been done for more of a marketing gaming standpoint. Please do comment down below, as I would be interested to hear what all of you have to say. Now, with Spawn being on the horizon, will you stick around in order to play him, or will you be satisfied with another character in the Kombat Pack? Once again guys, please do comment down below. But yeah, that's everything I did want to say here. So before this video wraps up, if possible, let's try getting it to about 500 likes. It's a great way of supporting this channel, and also do not forget to tick that bell, as it will notify you when I do upload a video. But yeah guys, that's it for now. So as always, please comment, like, subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know. Please take care, and I will see you all next time.